This is
Podcast Raleigh
with your hosts,
Ashton and Hayes.
I want to mold the clay. The businesses that I've worked in that have been successful is where I'm able to keep my eye on them, be more hands-on, be there when the team needs, and not just be kind of hands-off, pick the people, and it just works out great.
Welcome into Podcast Raleigh. In this episode, we talk to Donald Thompson, entrepreneur and co-founder of the Diversity Movement. An hour with Donald will convince you he can sell you anything. But right now, his passion is helping businesses expand their customer base and their talent pool for employees by embracing diversity. Donald Thompson grew up the son of a football player, but in college, he realized the practice squad was a long way from the NFL and he might need to plan a different career. He had big goals and acquired the skills to help achieve them along the way, but eventually he became a successful salesperson, turned award-winning entrepreneur to investor and author, and currently the head of the Diversity Movement. We hear it all, including when he got back into pro football as an owner, but we started by asking Donald how he ended up in Raleigh.
Yeah, I'm the son of a football coach, so moved here in the 80s to Greenville, North Carolina. And so I went to a little college at East Carolina, so go Pirates. And leaving school, kind of chase an entrepreneur journey, but I had to find a job first. There was a lot more opportunity in Raleigh than in Greenville, North Carolina. And so I started to really look for kind of what that first pay the bill kind of job was, and ended up working at a store pretty familiar to many called Dollar General. And I was a store manager at Dollar General in Carborough, North Carolina. But I lived in Raleigh. But that's what brought me to Raleigh, North Carolina, that first job.
And so you said your father was a football coach. He wasn't a football coach at ECU, was he?
He was a football coach at a lot of different places.
Okay.
He coached at East Carolina.
So he did. Okay.
He coached at UNC during Mac Brown's first tenure. And so he coached at UNC over a decade, University of Illinois, Pittsburgh, and the list goes on and on. So I moved around a lot as a youngster. But once I got to North Carolina, I found a place I could call home.
Gotcha.
I was going to say, so from that lens then, you've been a lot of different places. What were some of your early impressions of Raleigh?
So Raleigh to me was land of opportunity, right? Even 25 years ago, which is dating me a little bit, I saw that I could get on a plane and get anywhere I wanted to go, but there was enough opportunity for me to make my way, build a family, build a career right here locally. And so for a lot of the reasons that big companies are coming today were a lot of the reasons that I stayed. And so I'm pleased that thesis has worked out.
Tell me a little bit about, just because we're both sports people, but I'm curious about playing football at ECU. And then,
sure.
I'm curious tell me about playing a football and not graduating from ECU.
Yeah,
How did
sure.
you decide to go look for work?
Anytime people talk about my playing days at East Carolina, you do a little slight correction, right? I was a scholarship athlete, for sure, that is true, but I was a practice team All-American.
Okay.
So all of my best film is on practice. And so one of the things in terms of leaving that career behind is when you sign a scholarship as a college athlete, you have those NFL dreams. And it is a lot of hard work being a collegiate athlete. And back then, nobody was paying you, at least above board, to do that work. And so at a certain point, you have to realize the cost benefit. And if your head is not in the game, so to speak, you could get really hurt. And so after a couple of years, when I didn't see an NFL future, I saw myself playing a lot on special teams and different things, had to figure out what I could do to be great. And unfortunately, it wasn't going to be on the football field. And so I started to look at other avenues. And for me, when I was in school, I went to school to play football. I was a very good student, top 10% of my high school class, got into all the cool schools around Wake Forest, North Carolina, different things. I didn't apply to Duke because the application was too big. But from an academic standpoint, I had choices, but I always wanted to create financial stability. And at that time, entrepreneurship was not big in the educational system. They were teaching you how to go get a job. They were teaching you how to follow a certain pattern. And I just wasn't into that, right? I wanted to find a way that I could create long-term wealth no matter where I started in a business, as long as that opportunity to grow and thrive was there. And so that necessitated the move to Raleigh. And I wanted to somehow get into sales, because I figured if you could get into sales, that was like sports and it was highly production driven, right? That means people didn't care what you looked like, your background, different things. If you could sell, if you could meet a number, if you could carry a quota, you could rise within an organization and get chances. And so when I was looking for those first jobs, I probably put in 150 applications, but with no degree, right, it goes right in the trash folder. This is 30 years ago. People were not open-minded like they are today, and looking at alternative talent, if you will. And so anyway, I finally found, after the Dollar General years, some work in software sales. And the reason I picked software sales is I said, no matter what happens in the economy, technology, software is always going to grow. And those were some of the bets, both Raleigh, but the type of job I ultimately wanted to do, and then found that as an inside sales rep with a couple companies.
It's surprising to me to think about like an 18 or 19-year-old kind of having that foresight to even say, the job that I want is not being taught in school. Here's how to get to it. Was that entirely personally driven, or did you have people around you kind of helping you think through that?
I wouldn't say people around me think through it. My parents were super disappointed I didn't finish college, so they weren't in the camp with that plan right
Probably
then.
pretty happy now.
Yeah, they're okay now. Like they're okay. It turned out okay. Trial and error.
Okay.
Right. I looked at what other people were doing. Right. I talked to folks that had graduated, gone into different careers, and then, quite frankly, I looked at what options I really had. And so most of the options were restricted by not having a degree. And so then all of a sudden I said, all right, where can I make six figures over time? I didn't mind working. It didn't matter where I started, but I needed to have a job that ultimately I could make $100,000 a year. And I remember talking to a gentleman with a sales job, and he said, I don't think you can make $100,000 here. I said, well, this isn't going to be for me. And he goes, well, what are you doing now? I was like, well, I'm working at Dollar General. He said, he's like, yeah, but I'm offering you jobs like $65,000 or $70,000. And he's like, he was befuddled. I said, yeah. I said, but this first job is a progress point. And so if you're telling me that this job is capped, I'd rather work a job I already know is a dead end than take kind of a lateral move of something that I can't swing for the stars. And so I just kept searching until I found an opportunity that was a little more unlimited. So it was a trial and error. And then also I was pigeonholed just by the way that the economy was at that time and the way they viewed folks without a degree.
And did you call yourself an entrepreneur? Were you like, I want to be an entrepreneur? Or is that a term that you started describing to yourself later once you were successful? Because it's, I mean, most entrepreneurs wouldn't say, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to start working at Dollar General. Now, it sounded like you had a vision of like where you wanted to go, but like, did you refer to it as entrepreneurship at that time?
Not at that time.
Was it just sort of I've got a vision, I don't know what to call it, but I got to follow my gut here?
My vision was financially motivated first. The how was secondary, right? So I wanted to figure out how I can make $100,000 a year and learn an industry, right? And I figured if I learned through sales, right, I could then figure out other business entities that I could be a part of, grow, start, all those different things. But at first, it was purely financial, right? Because I had to figure out how to take care of myself, take care of a young family, all that type of stuff. The second thing is that I didn't really understand what an entrepreneur did, what the payoff could be until I started working for my mentor, Grant Willard, at a small company called iCubed. I was employee number 7. This was my first kind of high-end sales job. This was the first job that said you could make six-figure income. It was in the engineering services space, right? And so it was something I knew nothing about, but he was willing to teach me. I was willing to hustle. And so we developed a partnership there that was pretty cool. But what occurred is over the period of years through watching Grant, I saw him be able to develop and think of new product innovations, work with software engineers, build it, take a product from conception, right, to commercialization, and then we sold the business. Right now, at that point, I didn't own a lot of the business. I had some stock options and different things, but I saw that he did pretty well. And I said, I like this. I like this opportunity to work for a few years, work harder than most, but if it works out, you can do really well. And so I started to spend time with Grant and then friends he would introduce me to. And that was a group of entrepreneurs that were rule breakers, right? They couldn't really fully exist in a traditional corporate job. They had to figure out how to make their own way. And that was a club I wanted to be in.
And so I think you're lucky in a lot of ways that first instance was a company that did sell and he did turn out well. I mean, a lot of companies fail. Did you get any of that exposure as well early on, or were you just able to kind of see the good side?
I was able to see both because we worked with and sold software to enterprise corporations, but also worked as partners with smaller businesses that we saw some that didn't make it, right? And so I understood the risk. But in talking with my mentor and then watching, The same risks exist in a traditional job. The only difference is most people don't know it. Most people aren't behind the curtain to see that a layoff is coming. And so actually the risk in my mind was really the same. The difference was that you got to be a part of making the success story come true, right? And to back up a little bit, I'll give an example of how I learned that. Before I started working with Grant, I was an inside sales rep at a software company called Alphatronics. It's my first inside sales job, dialing for dollars, right? And so they saw I was willing to work hard, I was willing to take a no, and I was willing to learn, right? And so they put me on a phone, on a desk, a script, and I started dialing for dollars. And I started looking around and I said, the only people wearing Rolex watches are the outside sales reps. So I'm giving them leads, they're closing the leads, and they're driving Mercedes and I'm driving a Pontiac Grand Am or something, whatever I'm driving. I was like, okay, this isn't fair, but life's not fair. Let me figure out, how to do this thing. And so anyway, long and the short of the story is that business was acquired, but the company that acquired us only wanted the technology. So I remember walking in one day and there were boxes lined up. And I go sit down at my desk and I get my call list ready and I get a tap on the shoulder. And my sales manager, Curtis Hamilton, he said, Don, we need to talk to you in the conference room. I said, no, Curtis, I'm good. I'll talk to me at about 10 o'clock. So I'm gonna take a break. We'll make about 50 calls between now and then. I got you. He's like, no, Don, we need to talk to you right now. And I was like, Curtis, seriously, man, like, are you going to pay me to like chit-chat in the coffee room? He said, Don, we need to see you in the conference room. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I get up and I go, and there's like 14 people in this conference room. So it's the whole inside sales team, a couple of marketing people, and then the HR person's crying. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to be a good meeting, right? And so I sit down and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And they're like, well, this is going to be the last day of your tenure with our organization. We're doing some workplace transitions. I said, are we getting fired? And they're like, no, we're not getting fired. We're doing workplace transitions. I was like, sounds like y'all trying to sounds like y'all firing some people.
Am I coming into work tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And they got this packet in front of us and everything like that. And so I remember this, like this was a life-changing event. My wife at the time, my first wife, was pregnant with my daughter, Mariah. She was 8 months pregnant. And I remember sitting in that meeting, I said, I can't get fired today. And they were like, Don, this is tough for everybody. I was like, I'm not really concerned with everyone. I said, I can't get fired today. And I said, if I'm fired today, I got $400,000 in deals that I'm going to go tell those customers that you're blowing up this business and they shouldn't buy. I can't get fired today. And they were like, okay, he is like blowing up this meeting. It's like, you need to go talk to Brian. I said, I need to go talk to somebody, but I'm not getting fired today. So anyway, I go wait, and they had fired the CEO of the business, the founder of the business, and transitioned him out. And there was an interim CEO, our former chief marketing officer, a guy named Brian. So I go sit with him. He says, look, I hear you're causing a ruckus. It's a tough day for everyone. I said, I'm just not concerned with everyone. I said, I can't get fired today. He said, well, tell me about these deals. I said, yeah, now we're talking. He said, which ones can close, blah, blah, blah. Long and the short, I ended up staying with the company for another 90 days, insurance for 6 months. I closed 2 out of the 4 deals and made another 10 grand in commission. But I did not get fired that day.
Oh, wow.
Right. And that taught me, though, that no matter how good you're doing, I was making my number. You're an employee, you're not in control. And so my fate was in someone else's hands. So back to the question, and I know I rambled a little bit, entrepreneurship is not more risky than a job. A job's way more risky because you don't see the hammer coming.
So once you became an entrepreneur, how did you decide which businesses were the right ones to get into?
I'm still learning that.
That's a great answer.
So I try not to be too embellished too much. Sometimes it's opportunity and networking, and sometimes you have to really evaluate what things you're good at and what aptitude things you have for. A lot of times people choose businesses they're interested in. I'm not so much a big fan of that because you don't know if it's going to be profitable or not. If it's a hobby, if it's a side hustle, then interest makes sense, right, as a reason to start a business, right? But ultimately, I wanted to figure out things that I could do and build and sell that the market says it's worth you being in business, right? And so a lot of times entrepreneurs are really emotional about the company they're starting, and you can then miss the fact whether you're too early, right time, right leader, right, to build, start, and flourish that organization. So for me, I kind of let the market decide, and I'm really agnostic because I'm not an engineer, because I'm not a developer, because I'm not this or that. I'm a salesperson by design, by development, right? I like to build businesses and build teams, and I can do that in almost any industry. So for me, it's really about what does the market bear and can I do something meaningful, right, for the clients and obviously make a little money as we're going.
So you've talked about yourself as an entrepreneur, a salesman, and all of your family roles as well, but your professional categories of employment your titles are varied. When you introduce yourself to people, what do you lead with? Is it speaker? Is it author? Is it entrepreneur? Is it CEO?
That's a great question. Like, what's cocktail party cool? Like, I don't know. And it always kind of jams me up. So a lot of times I'll just say entrepreneur, business guy. And it really does depend on the audience, right? So right now I'm Dr. DEI, right? And so I'm doing a lot of work in diversity, equity, inclusion. But 3 years ago, I ran a marketing firm and was, a 3-time Inc. 5000 CEO in the marketing branding space, right? Before that, I was in technology sales. And so for me, really, I would say serial entrepreneur at this point, business advisor, but it depends on the audience,
okay.
I would say. But there's
great.
a lot of stuff I'm into.
And do you mentioned part of being an entrepreneur, get into business, you can get in there, work harder than others,
sure,
and then sell the business.
Absolutely.
Do you every business you invest in, do you go in and work on now, or are you to the point now where it's like you just put your money into a business, or you just put your money here?
A little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
So I do some angel investing,
Yeah.
right? And so that's where I put my money to work. And then there are businesses to where I will work as an advisor or be on the board, like I am with Walk West, and Abba Bowers is CEO of that business. And so I no longer do anything day to day and just help around the edges. Whereas the diversity movement, where I invested, but I am a co-founder, but I'm also the CEO. And so help drive that business to growth. My MO, and we've done this a couple times now, is really from about 0 to 10 million is where I'm pretty good. After about $10 million, after about 60, 70 employees, is where my interest does start to wane. I'm always thinking about something new at that point. And there are plenty of people that are better suited to run a business and scale it than I am, because that's not my gifting, because I'm not super into a whole lot of process and best practices and different things. I want to mold the clay. I want to be responsible for getting from 0 to 100 clients, and where that product is working, but kind of sort of needs to be developed in the field and the sales process is not quite there. I like to work with teams to build that and build that first leadership team. And then after we get it going and get it solidified, there's a lot of great people that can do it better than me. And I'm happy to let them do it.
When you talk about it in terms of, I don't know business well enough to know what the 0 to 10 million range is or what goes on,
Sure.
But it reminds me of, and just because this has come up before, there are, I think football coach specifically, because we talked about it, that's what they do. They, like Dave Clawson, who's at Wake Forest, before he was at Wake Forest, you go look, he was only at a place for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And he came in when they were 0-10 the year before, and he got them to 2 wins, 4 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins. And then he's like, all right, now I want to go start somewhere else at a 0 win and get it to 2 wins, 4 wins, 8. So it reminds me kind of that. But you've sort of led to, because now you've mentioned you are currently the CEO of the diversity movement.
Dr. DEI.
Well, yes.
Dr. D.
What is the diversity movement, and where did that idea come from?
Yeah, so the genesis of this is kind of interesting. So when I was working with Walk West, CEO of a marketing branding firm, we had a lot of companies come to us and ask about creating multicultural marketing, right? And with a very clear purpose, right? They wanted to sell more product to Black and brown people. They wanted to sell more product to women. They wanted to sell more people in the Gen Z. So they wanted some kind of audience specificity to grow their brand story. And we were like, all right, cool. I started asking these business leaders, did they want to just create the window dressing, the digital Band-Aid? Or did they want to look at diversity, equity, inclusion from the inside out of their business so it's more natural? I got a high degree of yeses. But we don't know how to get started and get there. But we don't have an organization that can talk to us that understands our business drivers, and diversity, equity, inclusion. Because a lot of times in business, what these companies were struggling with is consultants that were coming in and talking about social change, social footprint, which is all fine, but not linking those things to the business growth and profitability of the business. And so those, I would say, DEI pep rallies were short-lived. And as an entrepreneur, I saw an opening. I said, wait a minute, we have some uniqueness here, right? Because we can look at DEI from the marketing lens. We can look at DEI from the talent acquisition lens. And so at that point, myself and a couple of other folks, we went to get DEI certified, right? We became certified diversity executives. And so I went back to school, right? I wasn't opposed to school. I just needed school and education to help me meet an objective. And so we went in 4 or 5 day boot camp. We had to do a project, 300 question test, and I did not pass the first time. And so I had to go take this thing again. That was not fun. I missed by like 2 points or whatever. But anyway, so we went to get some training because I'm African-American, person of color, doesn't mean I understand DEI, organizational change, right? And how to move people through a process. And so we learned some of the fundamentals, and then we built a digital course called Diversity Beyond the Checkbox. And so Jackie Ferguson built this course, and we all helped, but Jackie was the brainchild behind building this course. And it's a 5-module course that we were just going to sell these courses to companies and get rich on the spreadsheet. It was great, right? All product, and we were just going to make $1 gazillion. But we beta tested it because I had a software background. So we got 50 different companies to help us look at this course. And they were like, love the course, but what do you do after? Love the course, what about international? Love the course, is this for frontline workers, mid-level managers, C-suite? Love the course, and. And then a handful of them said, love the course, can you come in and talk to our team? Well, we don't really do that yet. Well, what are your daily rate? And I was like, well, what do you normally charge for training? Yeah, exactly. Right. And I said, well, what do you normally charge for trainers to come in for a half day? And they said a number, and I was like, yes, we do training. Right. and so very shortly after that and building the course, we ended up with about 8 to 10 clients. And my thing is, once you get 10 clients and can serve them well, you may have a business. Because now you've exchanged your knowledge, your expertise for money and referenceability, right? And so as we went through that, we then made the decision, and then I'll bring it to what is the diversity movement today. The diversity movement today is a DEI technology-enabled consultancy. So we work with organizations to build their DEI practices within their business, but we don't do it simply through training and education. We do it through technology tools, data-driven surveys, so that we can allow corporations, their C-suite, their mid-level, their frontline workers can learn on the fly. So for example, of one of our products, we have 600 2 to 3 minute video vignettes. So we basically have a Netflix for DEI. So corporations can license our library of content. Now their 10,000, 5,000, 4,000, 20 employees can go to this digital library and get their DEI questions answered with psychological safety. It's behind a firewall, and then we get the data of what they're watching so that we know what to train on. So we wanted to help organizations build DEI best practices in-house, and then we have the tools, the capabilities, and the leaders to help them get there.
All right, so I'm fascinated by what you just described.
That's cool.
So can you give an example of what a vignette would be?
Yeah, sure. If somebody says, what is Black History Month and why do we have it? Right? And they type that in, it pulls up, it'll give a 2 to 3 minute overview on what is Black History Month, right? If somebody says, what does LGBTQ mean, right? If somebody says, what is gender pay equity, right? What is a microaggression, right? There's questions that people have, right? But they don't necessarily want to ask those questions always in an open forum.
No, that makes sense.
Right? They want to learn on their own and create that library. Then what we do is from that digital library of 600 to 700 videos, we now break them into playlists. So if you are a marketer, you can get a playlist that has DEI skills-based training for the marketer, for the CFO, for the people leader, for the frontline professional that is working with, say, for example, if you are working in a financial services branch, what are pronouns? Why are they important? It doesn't matter if you want to be referred to as they, them. It matters whether your client does. And do you want them to feel comfortable to spend more money with you versus someone else? And so those are the things that we build out to help organizations scale their DEI opportunities within their business.
I'm still fascinated by this. Sorry. So hey, are you in any of the vignettes?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
sure.
then I know, I take this very seriously, but I'm also curious, like, is there one that's like, is there like a good story of what, is there a funniest one or a craziest one that someone would ask? You're like, or even like, we would never have thought that this one came up, but like it got asked so many times, we made this vignette or whatever. I don't know. I'm putting you on the spot. But
I don't know funniest one.
Like I want to see them all. Like
I would just say they're more.
Funniest is the wrong word. I'm not trying to say that they're not all important. I just imagine like
sometimes they're
when you start going through of like
yeah.
trying to answer all the questions, like I feel like there'd be one of like, Well, I guess we need to answer that question.
Yeah. Some of them would be like, I'm not racist. Why do I need this DEI stuff?
Yes. Okay. That's a great example.
Right. I don't see color.
Yes.
Right. Which, I mean, you can edit this out, but that's total bullshit.
Right.
I don't see color. If somebody robs your car, you're talking to the police.
Right, how are you describing that?
I saw a person
Wearing a red shirt.
in a red shirt.
Yeah.
No, you say, I saw a white male. I saw a black male. I saw someone of Latin. You would use color as a descriptor, right? And we see color. Doesn't mean you're racist or not. It means that is a part of someone's makeup, their being, and what makes them unique as an individual. So a lot of the videos are focused on, not a lot, but a good portion of them are on the why DEI matters to your business, right? Because it's a very good question, right? I had a CEO ask me the other day, what is the level of involvement I as a CEO should have in the lives of my team, right? Because if we think 30 years ago, you'd go to work, I pay you. We're good, right? I don't care about your mental health. I don't care about your kids. You come to work, You do this job, I give you money, check clears, we're good. I'm a good employer. And then benefits and different things. Today's environment, people want a personalized work experience. They want to know that the organization that they're a part of cares for them as an individual, cares about their family and their well-being, and helps them pursue their goals and dreams, right? It's very different. And so leaders today are struggling because most leaders or many leaders of organizations came up like I did in a more command and control environment. And now they're being asked to expand their thinking to something that is really, really different. And so one of the things that we do with the diversity movement is we're not your judge, right? We meet people and leaders where they are, right? Another example, and not so much for the vignette, but just an example of what we do, how we work. I was talking with a gentleman who's very religious, strong Christian. And he said, Don, I just don't understand why I'm having all this pushed on me, right? And some things I fundamentally just don't agree with. And I said, well, do you believe that all your employees should be safe at work? He said, well, yes, of course. Do you believe if somebody does a good job, they should be promoted independent of their background, ethnicity, sexual orientation? Yes, I believe those things. Right? I said, well, really what we're trying to do is help you be a better leader of a broader group of people. We're not asking you to change your fundamental spiritual beliefs. He goes, well, that's way different. That makes sense. I understand. It feels like I'm the one under attack. And I said, yeah, welcome to the club. I felt like that my entire life. I get it. I understand how you feel. Sucks, doesn't it? But that's not the goal. The goal is for you to create an environment where you have the true ability to hire the best talent available. Think about people that say, we're going to hire the best and brightest, but they only recruit from the same 3 schools. Right. Fundamentally, it doesn't make sense, right? We're only going to hire the best and brightest, but nobody in the C-suite is other than middle-aged white males. Well, then it's not true. Then the truth is, I'm going to hire people I know and I'm comfortable with. If you want the truth to be, I want to hire the best and brightest, then you have to think a little bit differently about your recruiting, about your mentorship programming, about how you have something as simple as meetings. I'll give an example of this. So if you think about the way that you learn, but me, you give me a couple of bullet points, I'm good to go, almost any topic, let's have a meeting, right? Well, some people need to do their homework before meetings. Some people want to read up on the agenda. Some people want to get their questions together. So that means those folks that need a little extra planning time are at a disadvantage in the meeting if there's not an agenda for the meeting. That's diversity, equity, inclusion at work, is creating an agenda, putting out some read-aheads ahead of time, right, is an example, right, of how to have better meetings be more productive. If you're used to selling to all male CFOs and all of a sudden you look at the dynamics in business and there's more women leaders all across the business landscape, but your sales team only has the ability to relate to people that look and sound like them, you're going to sell less technology. And so what we try to do is break down diversity, equity, inclusion and link it to the business that you're trying to get done tomorrow. And we're feeling like that resonates in the marketplace. People are appreciating that.
You kind of touched on this. I feel like with the CEO that was pushing back, why is this being pushed on me?
Yeah, sure.
A few years ago, right in the wake of George Floyd, it felt like diversity was a more accepted thing.
Yeah, sure.
In today's climate, now diversity, some people will say that's bad. It's something that's being forced on. Yeah. Is that? I guess if businesses are reaching out to you, they obviously value it and want the diversity, or even if they don't value it, they see the benefit to their bottom line, right?
Sure.
So in theory, if somebody didn't value diversity, they wouldn't be reaching out to you anyway. But have you noticed, is there a backlash to diversity? Why are you trying to change things? Do you get more of the why is this being forced on me?
Yeah, there's certainly an element, right? So like you asked the question, I'm answer a question. You can decide what you want to edit. But the Republicans are doing a great job of creating a negative narrative around DEI. They're using terms like woke and DEI is attacking you and making it unfair and all these different things. And as marketers and communicators, you got to respect it. Because what they've done is they've hijacked a phrase for their own power grab, right? And their job, right, is to have power and representation in our government mechanism, right? That's their job. And in doing their job, they're vilifying something that people don't fully understand. Now, the same person that would say diversity, all this woke stuff, if you talk to them and say, do you want your wife, daughter, niece to get paid the same, right, as a woman as their male counterpart? Well, yes, I would want that. Do you believe that we should have wheelchair ramps so that buildings are accessible? Well, yes, of course, that makes sense. Do you think it makes sense that low vision and blind professionals can access websites and feel comfortable buying digitally just like those of us that are sighted? Well, yes, I believe that. So what they've done is they've created they've created a negative architecture around something that people don't fully understand. Here's the other way that they did it, and this is hilarious. And again, you all can edit what you want. So I was talking to someone the other day, and they were like, man, I'm just tired of them pushing this Obamacare on me. I was like, okay. I said, how do you feel about the Affordable Care Act? Well, that's cool, right? My parents have that. Oh, all right. Well, you're too big of an idiot to have a conversation.
Right, sure.
Right? But is it that person's fault, or do we all live in a soundbite culture? Since we live in a soundbite culture, that DEI narrative is creating backlash because people are able to put cover behind what they may or may not wanted to do anyway, which is create a more level and open playing field. So the answer is it is impacting us a little bit. But the folks that really want to grow a great business, you can talk to them in terms like, let me give an example. If you want the top talent, you want it to be your choice whether they come to work for you or not. You don't want that talent to disqualify you. The numbers still bear that 70% of folks in Gen Z are looking at DEI footprint of companies before they go work there.
I mean, I'm certainly not a Gen Z, but I am one of them. I will look at your board makeup and how many women are on it and how many people of color, and is there a space for me at your leadership level?
People are doing their homework. Yeah. So the business imperative, how you grow your audience, how you build your career progression for people in your company still matters. But to answer your question is, we are having to purge through the noise because of that political spectrum. And it's created a little more upstream dynamics. For us, it's okay because it's actually, and this is kind of hardcore business, it is whittling down the folks that want to stay in this fight. Anytime something gets harder, right, and there's less momentum around it.
And less money around it.
The also-rans go away, and then the cream will rise to the top.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually okay with a little bit of turbulence from a business standpoint.
Do you think there has been a continued, I'll use momentum, for more corporate and company training around DEI in the years after 2020? Or do you think we've kind of plateaued a little bit on that? Because there was that post-George Floyd peak, it felt like.
We certainly had momentum around DEI as constructed, right? And then some of that has flatlined a little bit because people want to see the results from the things that they did, right? The other reason is that anytime something isn't linked to the financial outcome, it's going to be more fad-like. Yeah. And so one of the things that when we work with practitioners, even if they're not working with us directly, but they ask us for feedback, advice, and counsel, is we really talk about not just building the business case, but the linkage of your DEI-related programming to the business that you're working with and for. And when you link it to the business, can you help the company make money, save money, reduce their risk? And when you link what you're doing to those three things, you have staying power.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
That makes sense.
Are your clients, you guys, the diversity movement is based in Raleigh?
Based in Raleigh, yep.
And are your clients mostly in the area, in North Carolina, in Japan, in California?
Yeah, it is. So Southeast mostly,
okay.
but but really all
Selfies.
over, right? The Country Music Association is a client of ours. So a year ago, we got to go to the Country Music Awards. It was awesome. They treated us first class. We got all dressed up and stuff. And so they're a client. If you want to kind of logo shop, Lenovo is a client of ours. They do great work in their DEI spectrum, but they took our unconscious bias module and dropped it into their global LMS, right? Bayada Health is a client, 30,000 person home healthcare business, startups, everywhere in between. So mostly Southeast. And in 2024, it'll be more of a national footprint as we upgrade our marketing.
If you were to kind of think about the Raleigh or the Triangle area as getting a grade on diversity and equity and inclusion, where would you rank us?
I'd give the Triangle a B, right? I think that I'm a big proponent of the work that is being done with the Raleigh Chamber. I think that there are a lot of DEI leaders in town that are really doing the work, right? Not the rhetoric, right? But we're really getting ingrained in the business. And selfishly, I know a lot of the leaders and what they're doing and what they're not doing in terms of moving. But I would say a B. The answer would be, right, how do we move from a B to an A?
Next question.
Is really all about how do we integrate DEI with the marketing and the audience building? How do we integrate DEI with better sales process? We're doing some work with a large automobile manufacturer that you would know the name if I dropped it, but we're doing a little bit of paperwork. But one of the first projects that we're working on with them is to go to the dealerships and work with their sales personnel. That's a DEI program that's going to last, to help their sales professionals sell more, right? That's what we're trying to get into our customer base, so that really when it bubbles up, right, it drives into it. We're partnering with another firm, and we're going to launch, and we'll announce this in about 30 days, but we're going to announce a fractional chief diversity officer program.
Cool.
So organizations that may not have the capability, right, to hire somebody full time, right, can hire a TDM certified professional, right, to come in 5, 10, 15 hours a week, just like a fractional CFO, CMO. And so that we can meet folks where they are financially, but they have the goal, the mission, and we can help them get there.
I wrote this question, how do you get people to listen to you? And I had a super long version. I was like, that's way complicated. I'm going to get him thinking on this, and then I'll give him my scenario when I get in person.
Okay.
And this is almost removed from the diversity movement itself, but feel free to use that as an example. But I know that you've consulted with businesses, advised on businesses in other places.
Yeah, sure.
So, and again, not necessarily think of diversity, but I put myself as person who works in an office, and the boss says, we've hired somebody to come on and help us with something new. Again, in this case, it's diversity, so that places more value on it. But I'm, as the worker who's being told this is this week's meeting or whatever, I'm not even judging the topic. I'm thinking the bosses have brought in somebody to whatever. And my attitude going in is, great, I get a free lunch, and I don't have to do my normal meeting with my department. Instead, we all get to, I can, So that's sometimes your audience. Hopefully a better starting point than that.
Yeah, sure.
But I've been that guy of like, all right, we're going to this meeting. I can probably be on my phone, whatever. How do you get people to listen to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And from my sales background, entrepreneurship background, the answer is actually pretty simple, right? It's that radio station, what's in it for me, and how can I help you do your job better tomorrow? And if I can answer that question, then you're going to listen and apply what we talk about. If I don't answer that question, then you had free lunch, right? But to the degree that I can help you be more effective, a better communicator, but better results from what you're doing, right, is the degree that you're not only listen to me, but then continue to listen ongoing, right? And that's, whether it's get people to listen to me, diversity movement, a handful of executive coaching clients, and people will ask, Don, what do you charge for coaching and different things? It's like, that doesn't matter, right, off the front. I said, what matters is, can I help you get what you want? So let's figure out what you want. And if what you want is big enough and I can help you get what you want, then you're not going to care what you pay me. But if you think about it as a cost up front and we haven't talked about what you want, then you're going to think the cost is high, low, different things. Let's figure out what you want to get done. And if I can help you get that done, right, then we're in it together. Our goals are mutually aligned. And then we have a different perspective on cost or that meeting or that time. Most employees are overwhelmed with what they're already asked to do in the construct of their life, their mental health, their family, et cetera. So most people are resistant to new, not because of what it is, just because it's something new that they didn't choose. And so that resistance is there right, all the time. But you simply overcome it by linking it to what that individual wants, right? More time, more money, more praise.
You are a good salesperson, aren't you?
I can,
That's very
every
evident.
now and then. I'll never starve. Even if the business go down, I'll always be able to feed myself.
That's great.
And you're so good that you've been winning awards recently.
A few.
And you've probably been winning awards for a while, but I've been mostly focused on the more recent ones. Which one caused you to pop the more expensive bottle of champagne? Was it the
Oh my gosh.
EY Entrepreneur of the Year Southeast for 2023 or the Phil Freelon Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award by the Chamber?
One didn't cause me to pop more champagne. They're different, right? The EY Award was really meaningful as an entrepreneur for several decades, that work and effort and that sustained success was recognized by an organization of that stature, right? And so that meant a lot standalone, right? Because there's a lot of, any entrepreneur that's listening, right? I respect anybody that has to meet a payroll, right? And chooses to be responsible for a team of people, right? And then the Phil Freelon Award, the DEI work to me is more meaning than money, right? And I don't want it to come off weird, but there's easier ways for me to make money than this battle that I've chosen to be on the tip of the spear. And so that recognition for me is really about putting the spotlight on the team that we've assembled at the diversity movement. And I have the opportunity to be their spokesperson, but we have some tremendous leaders that have decided that it's worth their time and their talent and their effort to be on this journey, and with that goal of helping millions of people, right? And so both of them mean a lot. I will say that the third thing that I would mention is that I was the commencement speaker for William Peace University this past, I think it was June. And that meant a lot to me as well. I mentioned that because when I think about it, even though I didn't finish college, I love learning. Even though I didn't complete college, I understand the sacrifice that people have to make when they don't come from a silver spoon situation. And if you do, God bless you. Your parents did well or different things, but the people that had to work 2 jobs to get through college, the family that had to mortgage their house to get through college. And so to be able to be a commencement speaker and see and be a part of that moment for those families, that was another thing that really moved the needle for me emotionally. Because there's people out there in all different walks of life that are dream chasing. And it's hard, right? It's easy just to kind of live status quo and get along, complain, and do that thing. But like when you're really trying to put that effort underneath the wings of a dream, I respect that no matter what people are doing.
Did they give you an honorary degree?
They gave me a PhD, and it does not say honorary. It says all rights. And so Dr. Thompson is in the house.
Nice.
You really are Dr. DEI.
Dr. DEI. So I'm pretty pumped. Shout out William Peace University, but I'm pretty pumped. I'm pretty pumped about that one.
And if you want to learn more about William Peace, you can check out a Podcast Raleigh episode with University President.
Yeah,
Dr.
Dr. Ralph is the man. So
they do
great
stuff
friend.
over there. I like you. I have no excuses. I grew up with a silver spoon and also didn't finish college. But I'm like, maybe someday I can get invited to be a commencement speaker. And then don't they have to give you like an honorary degree? And then I can like claim that like.
Yeah, I got it, man.
I think you put it in the universe now.
I know. I've been putting it out there. But I got to do something worthy of being invited. So, but no, yours sounds very official, PhD. So
yeah, I was pretty excited.
So I
Good.
was going to say, so I saw in doing some research for this episode that you were an owner of the High Country Grizzlies.
Yeah, sure. If you
What
want
is
to,
that?
the High Country Grizzlies was an arena football team. And let me just talk to you about it financially, and then we'll talk about the team. If you ever just want to take hundreds of thousands of dollars and just throw it out of the window, if you ever want to take hundreds of thousands of dollars and just burn money on video, like I would have made the same amount of money. In fact, I would have got like a million
maybe
hits on
enjoyed it
YouTube.
more?
yeah,
Right? Like I would have just, if I just would have lit a match.
this is like what Mr. Beast does now.
to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Like that's literally what I did.
So it was a great experience.
It was phenomenal. It was a learning opportunity of what not to do. And so here's the reason I say that, right? Having an interest in something doesn't mean you're equipped to deliver excellence in something. And I thought I could run that on autopilot. And the businesses that I've worked in that have been successful is where I'm able to keep my eye on them, be more hands-on, be there when the team needs, and not just be kind of hands-off, pick the people, and it just works out great. And then the second thing is Boone, App State. My daughter, Sierra, went there. Great experience, great folks, all that good stuff. But also we got the market wrong. So no matter what presentation we put, no matter how fun the games were, there was only so much visibility during that time of year, right, to be able to make that work. And so, yeah, I am a professional sports franchise, used to be owner, and I highly recommend you do not do that.
Well, we've got the courage. We've got NCFC. There's some different options.
Unless you have money to burn. So that would be on, what did you say you were going to do a meeting on like failures? That is,
yes.
That is a spectacular failure, but a great learning experience. It was fun. The people were great. The players were great. Like all of that was good. But from a business standpoint, it was outside of my swing space because I was interested in something. I was not committed to something.
So that almost echoes exactly what you said earlier.
And
of like you broke your own rule of like trying to
I created the rule from
make your
that.
You, in addition to being a guest, you host your own podcast.
I do.
Other than Ashton and myself, do you have any dream guests?
Good question. I saw that on the prep thing, and I was thinking about a lot of different ones. I would probably say my dream guest is, and I got a little emotional, probably my grandfather. It's, my big daddy was one of my heroes. And in Bogalusa, Louisiana, he's a Baptist preacher, he's a former professional athlete, Southern University, HBCU. He is in their wall of fame, and they used to call him Cheetah because he was so fast and different things. But I didn't get to spend as much time with him as I wanted. So my dream guest would probably be my grandfather. If you watch, there's a show, I forget what streaming service it's on. It's called The Deacons of Defense. And it talks about a group of Christian men in Bogalusa, Louisiana, where the movie was set, that would fight the Ku Klux Klan. And so all about nonviolence, but sometimes violence is the answer, right, that you're met with. And these men risked their lives to make sure their community stayed safe in a time that was pretty significant in our country. And my grandfather was part of that. And so my dream guest would be my grandfather, somebody that's still here with us and moving and shaking, probably Barack Obama, but not just because he was former president. It's because if you've ever achieved that level of power, and have seen things and the way things work, that I would always be interested in an hour with someone with that level of visibility of how power really works. Because most of us have a lot of opinions on things, and we really don't understand the mechanisms and structure of how the needles are moved. And so those would probably be my two.
Pretty good answers.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked at all about your career segment as an author. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I always have ideas, and I always think people should listen to them. So I don't always think they're good. So I have a reasonable amount of humility there, but I always think they're creative and fun to listen to. And I wanted to write them down. And so Underestimated, the book that we built and launched, and thank you so much. It was really about three things. One, I wanted to tell a story that my kids could be proud of and tell them some things in the book that maybe they didn't understand coming up. I wanted to create a brand and marketing piece as an entrepreneur, right? And then I wanted to say thank you to people that helped me along the way. And so those were the three reasons why we wrote the book, and had a lot of great people to help me put it all together. So shout out to Jackie Ferguson and Bob Batchelor. I literally have an award-winning writer that helped me edit this book and bring it out. Like, he's written like 15 books, and he's a legit PhD author, communication specialist. And I showed him the first draft. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to help you write this." He said, "I got you." I was like, and I'm one to always listen to people that are better than me in their area of expertise. But thank you for asking.
What else do you do for fun? I understand there's racquetball.
I do enjoy racquetball. Unfortunately, it's a dying sport. Everybody's into like pickleball. I
was going to ask you if you've
I hadn't played pickleball, man. It seems like grown up ping pong. Like it's like I'm not messing on pickleball. Like, people love it. It's fast growing. It's all like it's just not fast enough. like racquetball, the ball gets 120, 130 miles an hour. Like it gets moving. And so I need that kind of aggression a little bit. And so I haven't messed with pickleball that much. So I enjoy racquetball. I really enjoy reading. A lot of times, I'm a coach to some folks. I've had executive coaches over the years, but there were points in my career that I didn't have anybody that was willing to help me. And so I had to learn through books. I had to learn through whatever knowledge I could attain. Now podcasting is big and audiobooks and different things, but in the way I came up, I used to read a lot, and I was able to learn and grow through experiences of others. And I still enjoy reading today. So I'd say racquetball, reading, and then hanging out with my wife. She's a foodie and loves to cook and hanging out with her kids.
Now, do you only play racquetball for fun, or do you ever play competitively?
I used to play competitively before the pandemic, where they shut down all the tournaments. And I got as high as, I think, 25 in the state in ranking. And so I used to play competitively.
What do they have racquetball courts anymore?
So there's like 20 on NC State's campus. All the college campuses have them.
I knew the YMCA on Hillsborough Street had some.
Y still has them.
I figured they did.
But there's not so many places that have enough for tournaments as much anymore. But I used to play competitively, and so we still, in our Raleigh crew at the Hillsborough Y, is very competitive, right? So the 35 and under national champion plays there. Brent is like a 10-time national champ that plays there. There's a couple folks that are like 6 or 7 in the state that play there, and 25, 27. Like we got a good crew in Raleigh. So if you like racquetball and you think you got game, come see us. We'll have some fun.
I will not be there, but I'll be cheering you on. Are there any good stories from your days of competitive racquetball? Okay, yeah, this one's worthwhile. So I was starting to play tournaments. There was a tournament in Greenville, North Carolina. I'll tell you my age in a minute, and actually I want you to guess my age. So I'm playing the tournament, and I'm at the B level. This is my first state tournament, right? And so there's like 32 people in the draw, and so I'm going to play like 6 matches or whatever to get through. So I'm dog tired, but I get to the finals. And so I win the first game. It's best 2 out of 3. So win the first game in the finals of this event. And I'm feeling good and all this stuff. The second point in the second game, right, I jammed my foot to try to stop. And this most excruciating pain. So every time I put pressure on my foot, it was just pain was going just all through my body. And I'm sweating so much, you can't tell I'm crying, right? I'm in a lot of pain. And so I kind of limp through the second game, but I lose the second game, I get killed, right? So you get 5 minutes in between the tiebreaker, and the tiebreaker's to 11, right? And so my dad's here at the match and some other folks, and my dad was like, "Hey, what's wrong? You look like you gave up a little bit the second game or whatever. You saving energy for the tiebreaker or whatever." I was like, "Nah, man, I think I don't know if I can do this." He's like, "Well, what happened?" I said, "Man, I think I broke my foot. I think I broke my foot." And my dad looks at me and goes, "Well, are you in a lot of pain?" I said, "Yeah, I'm in a lot of pain." He goes, "Well," he said, "is it going to still hurt tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, it's probably still going to hurt tomorrow." He said, "Well, then you better win." He said, "Because if you're still going to hurt tomorrow, then might as well be worth it.
Then you better go out and this better be worth it." I said, "Man, I don't know if I can walk." He said, "Then you better serve it where he can't get it, and then you don't have to run." And so I'm like, "Yes, sir." Right? And so I go out there and I serve like 10 aces in a row, right? And I win 11-4 in this tiebreaker. And I go the next day, the doctor, whatever, and I have 3 fractures in my foot. I was in a walking boot for 2-3 weeks after that. But when my dad told me this will give you a little phrase of how I grew up. I was 36 years old, and he was talking to me this way.
Yeah. And what did you get for winning?
Like a medal. I didn't even get no money, man. I got it.
So you risked the possibility of not walking normally the rest of
But I won, though. Hey, look, man, I walked out. I was champ. I'm a state champ, man. And he said, "You better go get your championship." And I'll tell you, my mom and dad were both phenomenal in raising me, and the sacrifices that they made I can never repay, except by just being humble in our success and continuing to help others along the way. But the one thing that my parents instilled is that life isn't fair because you want it to be. You have to win with the cards you're dealt. And I've never forgotten it. It served me well. I want to make the world a better place for others. I want it to be more fair. I want it to be more equitable. But I'm not waiting for it to change to make my way in the world. And I think that's something that I wish I could impart on more people. More people are waiting on the world to change before they're making their way. And that was a great lesson. So, yeah, thanks for that. So that was pretty funny.
And thanks for all you're doing to make Raleigh a better community.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. If I can do anything for you all, please let me know. It's a phone call away. We're friends now. We're part of each other's network. And one of the reasons I started my podcast is podcast is the new golf, right? You get a chance to spend time with people for an hour versus 4 or 5 hours in a country club or different things and get to know folks and build relationships and build an audience the same way. So thank you all.
That's great to hear. I'm a terrible golfer.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Thanks for listening to Podcast Raleigh. Review us on your favorite podcast app. If you like this episode, share it with a friend.
This event, this book, this company, the things we've done, you don't reach levels of success without people spending their time, effort, and energy really engaging with you in the dream you're pursuing. Most of us have a vision, but if your vision isn't big enough to include the visions of others, then the dream stays small. And so this book is a culmination of a lot of things in my life, but one of the things that it represents is things that we can do together.
The most valuable lesson that he's taught me over the years, honestly, is to dream big dreams. I called him and I said, you know what, I think it's time and I think I'm gonna run for office. And he was like, let's do it, go for it. How can I help? I ran for office, I won, and in my 3rd year, I chair the Wake County Board of Commissioners and I run all of Wake County. Dream big dreams.
Donald helped me become a better professional. I started learning about my biases, my prejudices, and things that I didn't know I had, and it all happened from a real trusting relationship.
As a young boy who grew up in rural Halifax County, North Carolina, and is a first-generation college student, Donald Thompson his story in general is an inspiration to me because it shows me that as a fellow Black man in America, if you are willing to put in the work and do what it takes to get it done, you too can be and do anything that you decide.
Thank you, Don, for your support of our work and for your incredible work as an author, as an entrepreneur, as an advocate, as an ally, and a powerful change agent for all the underestimated. Your work matters, Don. You matter.
One of the most important things Don taught me is to always have an opinion. He really pushed me when we worked together to think critically about the decisions that we were making, the information that we were gathering. And so in any conversation that I have now, I attribute my ability to answer questions in such a comprehensive and thoughtful manner to the rigor, I would call it, that Don pushed me to have during our brief time working together. And I really appreciate the mentorship and leadership that he provided me during that time. So DT, if you're watching this, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the mentorship, leadership, and look forward to doing some things with you moving forward.
If you look at Don and I, you might not see a lot of similarities, but Don and I also have spent many, many hours pounding the pavement as security guards in very spooky buildings. And that's part of this book. We've also, as younger men, maybe we shouldn't mention this, but had a little bit of trouble paying the rent at times, having a little trouble making ends meet. It's all part of Underestimated. I can just tell you unreservedly, I love this story.
What I'm most proud of with Don is the way he treats other people. He treats them with class, and he treats them with dignity and respect. That's something that we preached in our home while he was growing up. Whether he works for you or you work for him, he treats the people the same way. And that's a gift, and that's an honor, and that's what I'm most proud of.
And if I have any piece of advice that I give continually with young people is, don't let the world define what you can become. And don't feel like you have to be that dream on your own. There are people willing to help you if you're teachable, if you're coachable, and if you're willing to do the work.